We are live here for the first ever fifth quarter show with the grown folks community. We've got CincyIceBurg 3 and BigHurt, two of your very own, that are going to be doing this show here for you. We've got plenty of topics and plenty to talk about. Like I said, this is the very first show. We plan on having a show about every three advances here in the OMFL. And the first thing that we'd like to talk about here is buy now, sell now. We've picked out a few teams that we'd like to, talk a little bit about and determine if we're going to buy them or we're going to sell them. So let's get right into that. The first team up is the Baltimore Ravens. CincyIceBurg, you just got done playing the Baltimore Ravens. What do you got to say about that team, the Ravens? Are you going to buy them or are you going to sell them?
Going into it, I was going to sell them, and after my game, I'm still going to sell them. They have a great defense, but they have no identity on offense, and they struggle to move the ball in the red zone.
Yeah, I saw there was a few turnovers in that game. I gotta say, I gotta sell them myself. I think if they were able to find some consistency within the red zone, I really think that they could probably be, a competing team over there in the AFC, especially give you a run for your money in the AFC North. But yeah, as of right now, until they show me some more consistency within the red zone, I would have to say I would also sell those Ravens. The second team up is going to be, one of our very own and the head honcho, Nate, who controls the New Orleans Saints. Would you buy them or are you going to sell them?
I am going to sell them as well. They're in a tough division over there with Atlanta. The key thing that sticks out to me is they're going to fight for the wild card, and right now they are 0-5 on the road. They need to learn how to win on the road, and they're going to have to play on the road in the wild card game if they want to be in it.
Yeah, I found that also very interesting as I was looking kind of over the stats. The Saints are in a very difficult division. Being what the Falcons are, arguably probably the top team in the OMFL right now. The Saints probably kind of more balanced in points for and points against. So I mean, they're giving up just as much as they're scoring, and being on the road. That's going to be a tough environment, a tough, tall order. And like you said, they're 0-5 on the road. So right now, being 4 games back, about 4 games back in the division, definitely sets up well that they're going to have to play on the road. And right now, they're just not finding a way to play on the road very well. So I would have to sell them myself on that note. The third team up we're going to talk about, or we're going to buy or sell, is going to be the Chargers, the newly Los Angeles Chargers. Are you going to buy or are you going to sell the Chargers?
I'm going to buy Smash's Chargers. He's got some potential over there. I mean, he's taken down some heavy hitters. He's taken down you. He's taken down the Raiders already once. I mean, he's taken down the 4-time champ Seahawks. He's got some big wins under his belt. So I look forward to seeing him battle and come out on top of the AFC West.
Yeah, it's definitely, I know that was probably the one game that stands out on my schedule. His defensive line with Bosa and Melvin Ingram just got after it. I mean, they're crazy, But the thing that's, like looking over their their schedule, they're one of the, top half of the defensive teams in that category. You struggle to score against this team, but on the other side of the ball, they have some playmakers, and they got a veteran quarterback. And unlike the Saints, what we just talked about, he's finding a way to win on the road. And he's got some competitors in that division. I would say this is probably one of the better divisions in the OMFL, or maybe not better, but let's just say competitive for sure. With Jay Bowles and the Raiders, you got Shocks Fan with the Chiefs, who is a tough opponent, and then you got the Chargers on Smash, and even Glaze over there with the Broncos can air it out and give you a run for your money. So I would definitely say, Smash has proven and shown that he can win on the road. and play some defense, which is definitely going to help you in that division. So I would also buy the Chargers in this instance right now. Fourth team is going to be the Green Bay Packers. Priest, is a very competitive owner. I think he drafts very well. So let's see if we're going to buy them or sell them at this point.
At this point in the season, they're sitting at 5-5, a few games out of first, close in the wild card, but I'm going to sell them. Priest just hasn't quite figured it out yet in the OMFL since I've been around here. He seems to make the playoffs, in his other leagues, his coach mode, OMFL too, but he just doesn't finish in OMFL. I mean, he's got Aaron Rodgers, and Priest is known for slinging the ball, but he just throws way too many interceptions with a guy who's 98, 99 overall. I mean, he's got to limit the turnovers, use the running game, slow down the defense. I mean, he tries to just battle it out in the high-scoring action, but his turnovers are the death of him.
Yeah, that is a very good point, and interesting that you bring that up, because that was really kind of what I was going to say myself. Is when I played the Packers, immediately going into that game, you got Aaron Rodgers on the other side of the ball, and he can definitely throw it in all areas of the field, but Aaron Rodgers has 35 interceptions to only 17 touchdowns, so he's thrown twice as many interceptions as touchdowns. I mean, he can air it out, but when he's turning the ball over that much, it's going to be tough to bounce back and find a way to win. We all know that turnovers are going to kill you, and if you turn the ball over, it's going to be hard to come back and win a game. And when you're throwing that many interceptions to touchdown ratio, that's setting it up for a tough road. Not to mention, he also struggling to win on the road. That's kind of one of the key things we've hit on here. So I'm going to have to sell the Packers at this point. I do think that they're on the verge of being a very good team if he can figure out the passing attack, because he does read the field pretty well. But it's like he moves the ball 30, 40, 50, 60 yards and then makes that huge turnover. So he definitely gets his yards throughout the game. But if he could just find a way to limit those turnovers, he could be a scary opponent, especially in the North. I mean, we got the Vikings are a good team. The Lions are sitting there right on the playoff the playoff edge, and then you got the Packers, with Priest. That's just it's going to be a tough thing. And then at the Bears that are upcoming team. So it's going to be a good division to see what happens there with Priest and his Packers. Next team up is going to be the Houston Texans.
All right, the Houston Texans are one of the favorites in the AFC. I'm going to buy them. They've shown some promise. They're 3-0 in their division. They've taken down the Colts and Dwayne. They've taken down Bills, Titans. They've taken down the Jaguars, that hard defense over there. They've just proven that they're one of the top teams in the AFC. They're averaging 25 points a game. They've got a top-ranked defense as well. Their running game is superb with Lamar Miller over there, averaging over 6 yards a carry. Spreading the ball around, hardly any drops by the receivers. It's a great coaching scheme over there. I just think he's going to stick around in the end.
Yeah, I mean, the Texans definitely have it going right now. Statistically, look at it. Defensively, they are, again, in the top half of the league. So, and defense right now is what's getting you some wins and getting you plays. Like, we just talked about how, getting turnovers, and that's the name of the game when you show up to play football. So, Texans are definitely getting it done there. The one thing that I'm going to say about this is I am going to say that I would sell this team right now. Yes, that may come as a shock. I do expect the Texans to be in the playoffs, but I'm going to sell them only on the aspect that he still has to play Dwayne with the Colts later in the season. He still has to play the Jaguars later in the season to finish up the season. He still has to play Bill with the Titans. He's got a tough game coming up with the Redskins, which Dawson has proven to play with one of the upper echelons in the Falcons just last week. So if he can find a way to win that game in Washington, and then you got the Jets and the Eagles. He's got some quality teams on his schedule. Like I said, I think he finds a way to get into the playoffs, but I don't see him coming away with the division. I'd have to go with Dwayne and the Colts in that division. Just pounding it out, limiting, shortening possessions and shortening the field and limiting turnovers and stuff. I'm gonna have to go with the Colts right now. And the Jaguars, like you said, a great defensive team as well. So I'm going to sell this team right now. And that could be easily changed within the next couple weeks as things play out. But right now, I'm going to sell them. The last team that we're going to talk about on the buy now, sell now is going to be the New York Giants.
All right, so I'm going to buy them at 5-4. That gives them a one-game lead in the division currently. They are struggling on offense. They're only averaging 15 points a game, but their defense is stout. It's only giving up 13 a game. With the new rule changes at the D-line, now, let me backtrack here. Pepper is a big D-line user, and we had some rule changes to where you couldn't use the D tackles, but you could still use the D-line. And he is adjusting slowly to the new rules, but I think he's going to come around because he's in a weak division, to be honest. I think he's going to come out on top of this and maybe surprise some people and maybe even get a win in the postseason if he finds his offense.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, I have to disagree on the whole surprise part because I don't think it's going to be any surprise if Pepper makes it in the playoffs and gets a win. This guy has proven, even in the last year's Madden, that he's a quality opponent, and he knows how to play the game and coach and set his team up to win. He plays very well defensively last Madden and this Madden, as you just said, 13 points a game. If he finds his offense, or even if he just gets enough done to give his defense a chance to, come down to the last possession, I think Pepper can find a way to win the game. I think the changes with the changes of the defensive line and using that, I think that definitely did change his gameplay and like being comfortable. But I think he's a good enough player that he's going to overcome that. I'm going to buy the Giants. I just got done playing them. Yes, I did win 21-0, but I think that was kind of more of a lopsided game. I got out early. He struggled and got kind of uncomfortable with certain situations. And I know better than that. I know that Pepper can win a ball game, and I know that he can close out a game with Barkley running the ball. He's got one of the best wideouts in Odell Beckham Jr. I think if he finds any type of offense, it's going to be a scary team because defensively, he knows what he's doing over there. I'm going to buy the Giants, and that's going to close out our buy now, sell now for this show. But we're going to move on to the next topic that we're going to talk about, and we've got the biggest surprise or shock team, and we're going to pick one team from each conference. So let's start over in the AFC side, and the team that I think we both agreed coming into the show. There was a couple teams that we had up, but we kind of narrowed it down to this one team. And the team that's the biggest shock and surprise at this point in the season in Week 11, I have to say, is the Miami Dolphins. What do you got to say about them?
Well, Kevin, I know you're listening out there when you watch this, but you're 1-9, buddy. Your offensive line is not the key to your problems. They may be weak, but there's about 25 other teams with weak offensive line. There's other things wrong with your game, buddy. You need to figure it out because you should be winning this division. When I was the Patriots last year and I left, I thought for sure you were going to rock this division and be the champ every single season. But for some reason, you're sitting here 1-9. You got me puzzled. You're giving up 28 points a game, and that's just not going to get the job done. I believe that's tops in the league, if I'm not mistaken. So that's defense. That's nothing to do with your offensive line. We need to see what we can do to fix your team, buddy. Get you back going in the AFC East.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to start with this. I couldn't believe when I looked at the standings and I saw the Dolphins at 1-9. I just uh, you know, Kevin is the type of player that I expected him to be at the top, competing with the Patriots for that division. And I know he'll get it going and get it turned around and come into next season. He'll probably be one of our buy now, sell now playoff push teams. But right now, I haven't watched too many of your games, being that we're in different conferences. But I just think that division is open for you to win. And seeing and playing you in the previous Maddens, I know that you're a talented user and player. So I would expect you to, make a comeback. And I don't want to say that would be a shock or a surprise. I think the shock or the surprise is that you're sitting here at 1-9, and we don't really know what to think about that. Like I said, it kind of puzzles me, just because I know that you're a better player than that, and the things that Cincy brings up, 28 points a game. I remember you being a great defensive user player. I know that you lost a couple key players in Jarvis Landry and Jay from last year into this Madden, but even looking at the schedule, I mean, you've played some tough games with people. The Titans, you lost by 7. The Raiders, you were, in the game. The Patriots lost by 4. Lost by 4 to the Bears. Just seeing that. But I still think that those games are games that I had in my mind that are wins for you. So I'd like to see that come around and be a change going into next season. The NFC team that we're going to talk about, has made some giant moves before the season. Again, this puzzles me, but the NFC team that's the biggest shock and surprise, we both agreed on this without a doubt, is the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, the Philadelphia Eagles, a 92 overall rated team. Ziploc, you've made the playoffs in OMFL before. Made it a couple times last season. I am shocked that you're sitting at 3-6 with this team. You even went out and got Le'Veon Bell, arguably the best running back in the league, and you've proven it. He's the #1 rusher in OMFL. However, your passing stats are not Le'Veon Bell alike. You've got Carson Wentz, Nick Foles, and Nate Sudfeld. Whatever his name is.
Sudfeld.
Sudfeld, yes. Third string quarterback. You got 3 different quarterbacks you're using. I don't know who you're using, but they all stink on the stat line. I'm going to be blunt. You got 3 wins. You're 3-6. You're still in this division. You're only a couple of games out. I wouldn't be surprised if you came back and won this division. However, the way the things are going, you're just running the ball and you're stopping the run. That's about it.
Yeah, I looking at a schedule here, before the show started and kind of seeing what I wanted to say, because I saw the standings obviously and seeing a few games, and I'm like, man, how is he? What's going on? I've played Ziploc many times, and that division with Dawson, Ziploc, Pepper, and Massimo, that's like murder's row over there. But looking at the schedule, you got a 3-point loss to start the season with the Falcons, a 5-point loss to the Bucks, and I'm like, all right, two losses that I could see. Then you got Dwayne week 3, and it was a 14-point loss there. Then Bill, a 6-point loss. Then you had the Vikings. So I'm sitting there going, okay, the first 5 weeks, this guy's played one of the top teams, playoff teams right now as we speak. So I'm like, okay, I can understand that this guy's started off 0-5, but it's still a shock to me. I figured you probably would have come out maybe 2-3, and I know you bounced back in week 6, 7, and 8, getting wins over the Giants, the Panthers, and the Jaguars. And like since you said, you got Le'Veon Bell. He's one of the best players in the league, and you've shown that. He's averaging a crazy amount of carries and yards per carry. I think it's like 6 yards per carry. And I've struggled to run the ball, and I've seen with the offensive line. The Eagles have one of the better offensive lines. So I mean, you got one of the better offensive lines. You got one of the best running back in the game. Play to that strength. You got a good defense over there. And I expect you to come back and put yourself in playoff push, as this division's still open for anybody. There's nobody that's set themselves apart. Pepper, as we talked on the buy now, sell now. I think he plays well and coaches and puts himself in a game to win. But Ziploc, I know you got it too, man. I've played you several times, and I know how you play, and you're a quality opponent. So I do see that. But you got some big games coming up with Nate and the Saints. You got the Giants. You got the Redskins. If you can win those Week 12, 13, 14 games, those are 3 in-division games, you could set yourself right back into that playoff picture real quick. Next topic we got is going to be just general talk, kind of an update for the league. As we talked a little bit with the sacks and the rule to not be able to use a user defensive tackle. It was covered in the press pass live, but let's just touch quickly on your opinion on this rule change.
I mean, I like the rule change. It's progress. Unfortunately, we can't ban use of all of D-line, but we'll take just the D-ends that you're able to use. I believe the sacks are going down, getting a little closer to realistic numbers. Like I said, the average is about 2.5 per team per game. And we're just a touch higher, but it's a video game. I think we're real close. I like what Nate and the guys are doing, in the front office with making this league, the most realistic league out there.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, I think the sacks were a little too lobby-like at the beginning, and making some changes to the rules and fixing that. I think we've come very close. And I know I played a test game last night, and it kind of brought a little bit more pressure back. But I'm okay with that. I think people can't feel too comfortable in the pocket, but it just can't be hike and the guy's like there and sacking you and forcing fumbles and everything like that. I mean, you got to be able to make a read. So I think we've done. The board, I give them props and kudos for what they've done and dealing with it, putting up with all the talk and inside the chat and seeing, handling that the best way possible. So I think it's been done and handled very well.
Yep. And then on one note, let me just squeeze this in here.
Yeah.
So there's been 3 games played so far actually this week. I know it's a small size, but in 2 of the games there's been a total of 5 sacks. So, 5 sacks in each game. That's perfect. That's as realistic as you can get. That's 2.5 right there. And then in my game versus the Ravens, there was, 7, which is fine because that happens. He had Lamar Jackson running around with his head chopped off, so there was a few more. But this week has been perfect on sacks per game, I thought.
Yeah, and you bring up the Ravens. They do have one of the best pass rushers in Terrell Suggs. So, and the Bengals have some good pass rushers, and like you said, Lamar Jackson definitely brings some mobility, but also gets a few more sacks. So, I definitely agree. Also, with the general talk, we got a Madden update that dropped today. I'm curious to see how this kind of affects and changes anything in the league. But the things that kind of stand out when I was looking at the update is in pass coverage, they got improved zone logic for cover 3 and cover 4. They've got some new, running real motion stuff that's been fixed in there. And then they also fixed a few of the rare issues of causing the QB to throw the ball or throw a very inaccurate pass either sideways or backwards, which it is quite funny seeing that, but it's not unreal. It's not realistic at all. And this being one of the most realistic leagues I've ever been a part of, I'm glad to see that they're updating and changing that. I just hope that it's not an update that comes in and completely wipes what we've done. As I said, I've give kudos to our board and our front office of putting in the long hours and the days and time and to get these settings as close as possible to where we're at. I just hope we don't have to go back and redo all that work. So, what do you think about the update?
I think it's good. They've done good so far. This has been one of the better Maddens, and they've updated. Each update's been, pretty impactful, and EA looks like they're doing well.
All right, Miss Cincy, you've put some time and hours in yourself, and I know that you've take some pride into this as daddy leagues, and even inside the league, they got the standings and stuff. But there's not really that real life like power rankings. And like I said, you put some time in, you do some evaluations, you keep up with the league pretty closely, watch a lot of games. So let's dig right into this. We got our power rankings 1 through 10. We're going to start with the 6 through 10, since he's going to cover his power rankings and give a little synopsis on each team of where they're at or why he placed them there. And like I said, let's get right into it. We're going to go 6 through 10. Talk about each team as they're as you ranked them there.
All right, so starting off at number 10, we got the 6-3 Raiders. They're actually just coming off a fresh win against the Los Angeles Chargers. They got solid rushing. Right now, they're without Marshawn Lynch. He's still out for a few more weeks, I believe 3 more. He's been in the top 10 this whole season, pretty much. He's probably going to stay in the top 10. He's a very solid rusher, solid user. He's got some key losses with a very good Colts team and your 49ers team, but I think he's a good number 10. At number 9, we got the Chargers, who's just coming off a loss against the Raiders. But you know what? I think they got one of the best cornerback combos in the league. They've taken out the Seahawks, and I think they're a little under the radar. Smash really doesn't get talked about too much. And then at number 8, we got the Patriots at 7-3. We got a new owner, actually, and he's going off to a real good start. I don't really know too much about him. I haven't really seen him play. But you know what? He's 7-3, and he's got 2 teams in his division with 1 win. So he really doesn't have too much to worry about there. But he does have the Vikings left on his schedule, and I'm curious to see how he does against a good team like the Vikings. Then at number 7, we got the Vikings at 7-2, sitting atop the NFC North. If you look at his stats on his team, he's got a top 5 passing offense and a top 5 defense in the passing game. He's got 2 tough games left versus the Patriots, which I just talked about, and then Seattle. If he can come away with 2 wins there, I think he's going to be one of the favorites in the NFC. And then you got your 4-time OMFL champ, the Seattle Seahawks, at 6-2-1. Good old Mo. Right now, he's not, coming away with his big wins like he's used to, or that we're used to seeing as a league. But he's finding ways to win. He just took out the Packers with a nice double-digit victory, but he's got a lot of single, one-score game victories. Right now, he seems to be pretty locked in with Lockett. His defense is all over the field, and we like to see how he continues throughout this season.
Yeah, so a couple quick questions are just, I want to pick your brain a little bit since these are your rankings. So you said that the Raiders are coming off a fresh win against the Chargers. And I looked at the Raiders' schedule. They have a 1 point loss to the Chargers in week 5, a lost to the Colts in week 8, where they lost Marshawn Lynch, and then they lost to the 49ers, where they were obviously without Lynch still. And then this week they bounced back with a win over last week over the Chargers in week 10. So why did you put the Chargers ahead of the Raiders? I think it could go either way, but what made the big difference for you there?
What made the big difference is showing the ability to play without Marshawn Lynch. I know he did just win against the Chargers, but a couple games didn't look too pretty without him, and that worries me if he gets an injury down the road. And the Chargers, they didn't look like their normal selves on offense this last game, so I'm a little leery about that game showing their true colors. So that's why I kept the Raiders below the Chargers.
Okay. Yeah, and like you said, the 4-time champ with Mo. Um, what has him sitting outside the top 5 for you? Just because, he is a 4-time champ, and this season isn't complete, and he's still fighting for at the top of the playoffs in the NFC. But what has him outside the top 5 at this point for you?
What has him outside of top 5 is I don't think he's going to get. I don't want to say luck, but I'm going to use the word luck. Lucky enough to just pull out victories like he has been. I mean, he's got about, I don't know, 4 or 5 of his 7 wins by less than 1 score. I mean, you can't always win by that. You might think you can, but I just think it's going to come back to haunt him. He really hasn't found his groove like he did in Madden 18. But who knows? It could pick up by the end of the season, and he could be the hottest team going into the playoffs because he still has to play a tough Panthers team and Colin over there, and he's got you left. He's got the Vikings. Actually, you know what? He's got you twice left, so that's going to be real interesting. And then he's got the Vikings also, so he's got some tough games left.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because I know I've got him marked on my schedule before the season even started, and now that we're at where we're at, that's going to be real interesting. Let's get into the top 5 here, where the nitty gritty is. We've got 3 through 5. Again, just a quick synopsis on each team.
All right. At number 5, we're going to take my Bengals, sitting at 7-2. I just came off a fresh victory against the Baltimore Ravens. I do got a couple losses against some tough teams, one being the Colts and the other being the Falcons. 2 tough teams, arguably, the top 2 representing the AFC and NFC. I take pride in my passing game. I got one of the better passing passing quarterbacks in my opinion. He leads the OMFL in passing. I just think that he belongs in the top 5 right now. At number 4, we got Dwayne at the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, what more can I say than Bo Scarborough? I hated when this guy got traded to him because I knew he was going to be trouble. And sure enough, he is trouble. The guy just falls 3 yards every time you try and tackle him. Not to mention that he's averaging 25 points a game. He's also got a top 5 defense. He did lose an interesting game versus Houston to put him a little behind in the division, but he's got revenge coming up very soon. And I think it could go his way, but we'll see. All right, and then number 3 is going to be same division in the South. The Houston Texans did beat Indianapolis earlier in the season. He's the top scorer in the league. One thing that has me a bit mind-boggled is his 2 losses were Dallas, good team but underachieving right now, and the 1-9 Buffalo Bills. It's going to be interesting because he did bounce back, but he's got 3 division opponents left on his schedule. So if he can take out all 3 of them, he belongs to represent the AFC. in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, like I said, or like like you just mentioned, the Texans definitely shocked me with their loss to the Bills and the Cowboys. They're back-to-back weeks, and it was kind of like, okay, where are the Texans heading after coming off a big win against the Colts in Week 4? But after those two losses, he's bounced back and got a big win against the in-division Jaguars, and then definitely won against the Dolphins and an air-it-out attack with the Broncos. Was on a bye week last week, and then as we mentioned earlier, or as I guess I mentioned earlier, he's got a big game with Dawson this week to see where it's at. Um, like I said earlier, I'm selling him, but he's on the verge of me buying him still. I think he's neck and neck with Dwayne and the Colts. It shocked me that he won that game just because I had Dwayne winning it, but I don't think that it, they could split every year. So it came as a shock to me a little bit, but if he wins the second game, then he's definitely going to be convincing me to buy him. That's for sure. And as you said, your team, you've lost two tough games with the Falcons and the Colts. Week 1, not going to lie, I saw that score and I was like, oh man, where's Cincy heading here? But you've definitely bounced back and gotten some big wins and found ways to win the game. And, your only two losses are to the top teams, respectively, in each conference. So, top 5 for sure. Definitely have to agree with you there. And then we've got our top 2 teams in the OMFL. Give us your thoughts on that.
All right, at number 2 is your San Francisco 49ers. All right, BigHurt, it's been a while since you've been in the top 2 in power rankings in OMFL. You've always had the potential, but I think you found your click finally. You're sitting at 8-2 comfortably, sitting on a bye this week. I think you found it, and you've got a top 5 defense and a top 5 offense. Right now, you've lost to the Chargers, and I believe you lost to the Vikings week 1, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct.
That's 2 very good teams, but the biggest thing I see in your game is one guy that I really like, your running back, Joe Williams. I was looking at your game, and he really wasn't getting the ball fed to him a lot in the first half, but it seems like you've liked him a little bit as of late, and he's been getting the ball a whole lot. And he's actually averaging 9.2 yards per carry. And even McKinnon over there is at 4.5. You got good rushing going on. You got an addition. AJ Green, you got rid of young Pettis, but AJ Green, you pay him big bucks, he makes big plays. And so far he has for you, drawing, big coverage over there, opening the door for Marquise Goodwin and your tight end Kittle over there. The only setback I'd say that you have is your passing game. I've talked to you about it. Old Jimmy G over there, messing around with too many strippers, I think. But, he's just coming in at 7 TDs and 16 interceptions. If you can fix that, if you can get your touchdowns above your interceptions, there ain't no doubt in my mind that you can represent the NFC. And then at number 1, we got the Atlanta Falcons. The guy's got one blemish. To Colin. Week 2, I believe. It was early on. It was a shootout. It was a high-scoring game. Could have went either way. But out of the box, this team is fantastic to work with. They have it all. He plays a lot of man defense, and you can't complain about that. His man D is smothering. And right now, he's just the top gun, and everybody should be afraid of this Falcons team the way he's clicking.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned a couple of things that kind of stand out. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of shocked that I'm playing the way I am with the 49ers. I thought I'd be, competitive for sure. I always think I'm going to be competitive. Last year's Madden, I couldn't find it. This year, I'm just feeling a little bit better. But the big thing is, I still have some big games left on my schedule with Mo for the division. And those are going to be what it comes down to, in my opinion. I'm 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 shocked that I'm in the top two, but I think I belong in the top 5 or 6. But Mo's going to be a big test, and I've got 2 games left against him. And then the Falcons. I mean, what can you say? You hit it on the head. This guy's played flawless. You know, I mean, he's only given up over 20 points one game, and that was his loss to the Panthers. So, I mean, he's defensively is shutting it down. He's got one of the best receivers in the league, and the toughest orders for any defense to match up with and plan against, and that's Julio Jones. And then his rookie Calvin Ridley, he's got 2 backs. Matt Ryan's a veteran QB. Like you said, right out of the box, his team's ready to win, and he's definitely using them well and proven that this team is a good team. So yeah, I think that rounds it out. And our power rankings will be updated here on the next show, in 3 or 4 advances or so. It'll be interesting to see the shakeup because I think, we got some big games on those top 10, the Vikings and the Patriots and the Seahawks and the 49ers, and then you got the Falcons and then you got the Colts, and every single team in that top 10 has at least one, if not more than 1, 2, 3, 4 games left on their schedule that it's going to determine kind of one of these teams could go top 2, 3, 4, or 5 and drop right out of the top 10 really easily. So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. Our next topic we're going to talk about is going to be our key stats and injuries. As we mentioned earlier, the buy now, sell now, and even our power rankings, we've got some big injuries. Injuries definitely could, hurt any team. But the biggest injury I think right now that stands out, and we both agreed about this, was Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch is just such a big factor for Jay Bowles and the Raiders team. He's got 3 more weeks left with broken ribs. And I think once he comes back, Jay Bowles is going to feel a little bit more comfortable. And he's finding a way to win a game last week against the Chargers. We'll see what happens this week and the upcoming couple of weeks. But yeah, Mike Evans with the Buccaneers is another big injury. He's got 1 week left with the broken ribs. And then Sharif, I believe is how you pronounce his name, Darius Geis with the Washington Redskins. Dawson, I know you've played a couple tough games, especially the one against the Falcons, the top of the division there in the NFC. And I think once you get those 2 players back on offense, I think that's going to definitely put you over the top and make you, for sure, at least continue to be a competitor in that NFC East division. But I know your right guard, Scherf, is on like a 92 overall, and offensive line is very important in this game. It's also very scarce, and so sparse. but yeah. So then Darius Guys being such a mix of a power speed back. Well, it'll be interesting to see how he uses those guys coming back. And then our big defensive injury, I think it's a fresh injury, is Jarrell Casey with the Titans. 6 weeks, knee cartilage tear. I think he's going to be the guy that kind of holds it down in the front 7 for the Titans. So it'll be interesting if Bill, being in such a tough division with the Jaguars, the Colts, the Texans, all 4 of those teams are capable of making the playoffs. And Bill's right in the thick of it, so we'll see if that affects him at all. Do you have any comments on those injuries or any other injuries?
I'm gonna comment on a couple of those injuries actually. To be honest, that Mike Evans injury over there in Maniac Land of Tampa Bay, I think it's actually a good thing for the import Doucette. He's showing that he could be the number one man over there, and he's proven it since Evans has been on the DL. I think it's actually a win for Maniac's team over there. As far as J Bows, Marshawn, Skittles Lynch, he's been a workhorse. You know, he leads his team in yards. He leads his team in average per carry. But Dougie Fresh and Jalen Richard and Chris Warren the third, they're not going to get the job done for you. If you're going to make a deep run in the playoffs, you need your workhorse, Marshawn Lynch. And once he gets him back, I think he'll be rolling. Now, Casey is another interesting injury for the Titans. I think D-line's very important for a team of playoff potential. And if you can't get pressure, then you're not going to win games, because if a team has all day to throw, then you're just going to get picked apart. And that's what I'm going to touch up on the key injuries.
So another kind of topic within the same segment here is stats. Like we said, we've kind of had some rule changes. We've touched base on a lot of teams and individuals using certain styles or key players. What kind of stands out, either individually or as a whole, as a league for you in this aspect? I know that you mentioned something about quarterbacks, but yeah, just kind of touch base on that.
Yep. So we got a few things that I was looking at. So for quarterbacks in the league, there is honestly only 4 teams that have more touchdowns than interceptions thrown. Now, I know we're on all Madden, but it's sloppy in my opinion. And really, as I looked at it, there was only 3. We had my Cincinnati Bengals, we had the Atlanta Falcons over there in the NFC, and we had the Houston Texans. Pittsburgh's in there because he recently made a switch to Mason Rudolph, and he's thrown 5 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. He's looked very good over there in Pittsburgh. I'm just a bit confused on why there's so much more interceptions than touchdowns in this league. I don't know if it's just, laziness in the passing, because this is a lot different passing than Madden 18. But I'd love to get your couple quick hits on why this is happening.
Like you said, it's on all Madden, but I mean that's no excuse. I think it's just people seeing it. I don't know if it's the defense is reacting so quick and closing in. But it'll be interesting. Every year it's a new Madden. I wonder if we stay on all Madden and kind of keep the settings pretty close to where they're at. I'm curious to see if we have a significant jump or increase in better completion percentage and less interceptions going into like season 2 and even season 3 as we move on in this year's Madden 19. As we talked earlier, I think there's several teams in this league that could definitely be a much better team record-wise if they just found a way to not turn the ball over so much. And it's definitely not the fumbles category. It's the interceptions. I know myself. I've put myself where I've been ahead in a couple games, and I've thrown some just dumb interceptions, and next thing I know, this is a ball game again. And Madden's is a funny way of, as soon as you let a team back in, all the momentum is on their side, and it's just going to be tough to bounce back from that. So I don't know if there's anything I can really put my finger on at this point of why it's happening, but it's definitely something that I'm interested in seeing going forward. And seeing if it improves at all as a whole. I know that's something that I'm focusing on myself, is just being a better protector of the ball in the passing game and trying to keep my running game honest. So, but with the passing, the couple things that stood out, you kind of hit it on there, is right at the top is your very own Andy Dalton with the Bengals. He's top 3 in completion percentage with Luck, Bortles, and Dalton up there. He's one of the best in the touchdown interception ratios for starting quarterbacks next to Deshaun Watson with the Texans, while having the most passing yards in the league going into this week. That is just crazy that, like, seeing those type of categories. Some people, I would expect, Jay Glaze to have touchdowns or even yards, just his air it out attack. Deshaun Watson with his receivers. I think he, could be at the top of touchdowns and yardage, and he's there. But it's interesting to see Dalton and his rating compared to some of these other guys that even like Blake Bortles. It's interesting to see a couple of those guys rather than like an Aaron Rodgers or a few other guys that I would expect to be up there, ahead of him. But with that being said, you've shown that Andy Dalton was human. I believe it was week 11 where you threw 3 picks versus the Saints, but still finding a way to win. That's we talked about that. Turning the ball over is tough to bounce back from and find a way to win, but you've done it. And just a couple weeks ago, I noticed Watson wasn't up there, but he's had a couple good weeks in the last 3-4 weeks to kind of put himself up there next to you. So it's interesting to see moving forward how these quarterbacks shift out towards the end of the year. And are we on pace to see someone throw 50, 60 interceptions? I hope not, but we'll see where it goes. The next stat that we kind of talked about was DJ Moore, the receiver. As we talked about all these passing yards, touchdowns, and everything, you would expect like a Bengals receiver or a Texans receiver or even a Jaguars receiver or a Colts receiver to be at the top. And no, it's DJ Moore with the Panthers. He has over 1,000 yards. He's one of 3 receivers going into week 11 with over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns as a rookie. He has 69 catches, leads the OMFL by I think it's like 14 or 15 going into this week. 2, 3, and 4, we got Tyler Lockett from the Seahawks, which we know Mo can take a receiver and pass the ball to that top receiver. We have Julio Jones. We discussed he's one of the best. The Falcons have it going on there in Atlanta, so no surprise there. And then as we've mentioned, or I guess I've kind of talked a couple times, Jay Glaze and his air and out attack, bringing his import in, Nixon. That guy was a stud last year in Madden. Comes right over and picks right back up where he was last Madden and being right in the top 5 again with receptions, yards, touchdowns kind of in the receiving category. But the big shock for me is DJ Moore as a rookie. I'm kind of interested to see how he progresses off of these numbers if he stays on track and leads the OMFL. Obviously, right now, I'd say he's probably at the top of the rookie voting, along with maybe Bo Scarborough. But it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, DJ Moore is an interesting character, and first I'd like to, thank Nate for turning the XP sliders down a bit, because DJ Moore might be a 95 by now. But the key stat here is his drops. Yes, the man catches the ball. He's got 69 receptions, over 1,000 yards receiving, but he's got 16 drops. Nobody else in the top 8 has more than 10 drops. The guy needs to get better hands. I mean, he's eating popcorn before he goes out there and puts his laces on. Like, I just don't understand, he's not the best receiver, but he's getting open and he's getting the ball thrown to him.
He's hung around T.O. too much is what you're saying?
Oh, yeah. He's hung around T.O. way too long. He's got 6 touchdowns. That's one of the tops in the league. Colin's a great player, great user. He's going to find DJ Moore, pretty much every game in the back of the end zone. He may drop it, he may catch it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I didn't really notice how many drops he had, but I think there's more drops this year than there is in previous Maddens, which is I'm okay with for the most part. Some of them are kind of like, man, he would catch that ball, but we gotta have you gotta have a sense of balance. So definitely makes sense that being a rookie kind of is up there, but yes, he does have one of the most drops, or I guess drop rates. The next and last statistic that we're going to talk about is just some league-wide kicking stats. We've got 3 kickers that have hit over a 60-yard field goal. That just stands out to me as wow. I mean, I don't know if these 60-yarders have been hit with or without the wind, but 60-yard field goals just, I mean, that's no chip shot. That's especially on all Madden without the little kicking arrow or kicking meter there to kind of help you direct the kick. But hitting a 60-yarder itself is hard enough. And then out of 28 kickers in the league with a minimum of 5 field goal attempts, our league average for field goal percentage is 75.9%. That's kind of crazy to think about. Touch base on a little bit of that if you have anything to say on the kicking stats.
Yeah, I mean, we'll start off with the league average, and you know what? I love it. I can't stand, 45, even 40-yarders, being easy, Anybody can kick a 50-yarder with a meter sitting there, but, when you got no meter and you got crosswinds going in 10 miles an hour, it's tough. I mean, shoot, even extra points at this rate at, crosswinds is tough, and it just makes it that much more realistic, and knowing that every field goal matters. I believe there's only about 3 teams that are sitting at 100% on field goals this year, and that's quite impressive.
Yeah, it's interesting to think because I noticed when I was going through the stats that Ziploc has Jake Elliott. I think he's like 14 of 14, but he's one of those teams that we talked about. But he's definitely executing in the running game and the kicking game. He's 100% with Jake Elliott. And there's, as you mentioned, there's a couple other teams, but myself, I'm at like 70%. I've had plenty of attempts, but just some of them with the meter, it definitely can change a game in a late game where you miss that field goal. The game's up in the air, put a little pressure. And if you get any crosswinds or anything like that, it's not a gimme kick anymore. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this show. You got any final touching thoughts or comments that you want to put on this, Cincy?
No, I mean, grown folks community, I hope we didn't bore you too much with this, coming up on an hour show. We don't want to, step on any toes with the great Press Pass Live that's, headed by our 4 main guys over there. It's just a little sideshow that we're doing that's going to add a little bit extra to this OMFL 5th quarter league.
Yeah, I definitely you hit that right on the head. By no means are we trying to step on the toes. I think the Press Pass Live is a great show. It's fun to watch and listen to each and every time, and a release of the new one to see what the 4 head guys that set the rules and the sliders and kind of run the ship here for us. This league is one of the best that I've ever been a part of. So I just, I think we both agree that we just wanted to add a little extra, talk about a little extra stuff. You put some time in on the power rankings, so let's talk about it and give something a little extra to the league. I think we're going to try and find some new topics each and every time that we talk about, but kind of keep some similarity in what we do discuss with the power rankings, since that's kind of put together by yourself. And then if we have any people that want to throw something in or have something that they would like us to talk about, shoot Cincy or myself, BigHurt, a message. And thanks for listening. Like you said, I hope that we didn't bore anybody too long, as we are just at 1 hour. And that wraps it up tonight for us on October 1st, in the middle of week 11. We will be back in about 3 weeks, somewhere between week 13 to 15, somewhere around there. You'll be seeing another show before the playoff get into wrapping up there. And then, but we'll talk about all that kind of stuff. Once again, this wraps up the fifth quarter show in the Grown Folks community. We appreciate your time. And until next time, good luck, play your games, and enjoy, and continue to have fun and be competitive.